Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg, and today we're going to be talking about the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, the strangest man of all time. Okay, so I've been a fan of the Hulk for a good number of years. And like many people that say they're a fan of something, I only had a casual knowledge of the Hulk. I liked the idea of the character, and I saw movies featuring the character, and I was like, yeah, the Hulk, he's cool. And there was a time when I had read Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, and I was like, wow, I'm reading comics. Now I'm a real fan. And I watched the animated film for Planet Hulk, and I watched a couple of other animated stuff. I think it was like Thor versus the Hulk and Wolverine versus the Hulk. It was like a couple of short movies. I was like, yeah, the Hulk, he's cool. But I never really read much comics of the Hulk, aside from the big, World War Hulk, Planet Hulk, the big stuff. And so it was a little while back, a few months back, I was in the market to get a new tablet to do some reading on. Not comic books. I was originally just going to read books on it. And I was looking around, and people were talking about, somebody mentioned getting like a 10-inch tablet, because that's the perfect size to read comic books with. And I was like, that could be cool, because you don't have to like resize the thing, or if you read like Comixology or similar stuff, Marvel Unlimited, if you have a smaller screen, they do this feature where you can just flip through panels, and it has sort of these nice little transitions between different panels, and it obviously takes a lot more swipes to go through a page than if you're just showing the whole thing, but that's how it's done on like a phone or a smaller tablet. But I was like, it'd be pretty interesting to read a comic book where you don't have to, because that probably was how I read Planet Hulk and stuff, was just doing that. But it would be cool to just have a tablet like the size of a comic book page and just read the whole thing at once. I was like, maybe I'll read some comic books. And I'm a big fan of The Flash. And again, I say fan in sort of the same way. But I was like, maybe I could read some Flash comics. And so I was like, Mert, who many of you are aware of, is a big comic book fan. And a while back, he was a big fan of, I'm pretty sure it was Comixology. And I want to say it was Comixology. And he had like a subscription to it or something like that. And I think that's how I want to say that's how I read Planet Hulk and stuff. But you had to purchase every single comic, pretty much, from what I remember back then. And that was just sort of ridiculous. I think they had sales once in a while, but yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I could read Flash comics, and I could buy a lot of Flash comics and spend a lot of money on that. But now the big thing is subscriptions, sort of like, Netflix, where you can just get an unlimited amount of comics for a monthly or annual price. And now that is something very appealing, because I don't want to say spend $2 just to read the next 20-page comic. That's absurd. I'm not going to do that. I'd rather just read a book, which takes me a lot longer, for like, $10. So the subscription appealed to me a lot, and I'm sort of blanking now because this is a few months later, but I want to say DC didn't really have much in the way of that. I think you can get a Comixology subscription, and they have a lot of comics for everything. They've got DC stuff. I'm pretty sure they have Marvel stuff. They've got other publishers and things like that, and you have access to a bunch of stuff, but you do not have access to like everything that DC puts out. And from what I remember, there was no way to get unlimited access to everything DC has put out. Whereas Marvel has Marvel Unlimited, which is insane. It has an insane amount of comics. There are gaps, there are things missing, even in like the main Hulk series. So far, I've not found any gaps, but there were some like side appearances in some other comics. I think there was one issue where he appeared in a Ghost Rider comic, and that was not on there. And I think there were a couple others, but everything specifically directly related to Hulk was on there, and that's good enough. There's a lot of shit on there, and it's a nice annual price of like $80 or something like that. And so I was like, all right, they have this thing for Marvel. I like the Hulk. I'm gonna do the Hulk. And so I was like, I could just go through and read the big series, the big main series, but no, I want to see the whole progression. I want to read everything. And I still don't regret that decision at this point. I want to read everything related to the Hulk. So I started at the very beginning. You're looking at the very first cover, Introduction to the Incredible Hulk from 1962. So this was written by Stan Lee, penciled by Jack Kirby, who also sort of helped come up with the plot, and inked by Paul Reinman. And so this series that you're looking at right here, The Incredible Hulk, only lasted 6 issues. It was incredibly short. The Hulk was not popular when he was first introduced, apparently. For whatever reason, they put out 6 issues and then that was it. But the Hulk did not go away. He guest starred on the Fantastic Four, which was a pretty big deal. Fantastic Four were like the thing in comics, aside from, Superman. And he was also a founding member of the Avengers, which was also in the 60s, as you'll see in a little bit. But he wouldn't... then, after that, he was put into the Tales to Astonish series, which... at the time that he jumped in, it was with Ant-Man. But eventually it became, for quite a while, it was Namor, the Submariner, and Hulk. So half the issue was Namor and half the issue was Hulk. And then eventually with Tales to Astonish 102, which I want to say was like 40? Yeah, it was like 42 issues after he joined it. Tales to Astonish was renamed to The Incredible Hulk. So The Incredible Hulk proper series began in 1968, I believe. And it started with 102. It did not start with number 1. We wouldn't get another Hulk number 1 until 90s, I want to say. 99? Anyways. So, since I've been going through everything related to the Hulk, which there's a lot, I have been using a website. It's the comic book reading order, or the complete Marvel reading order, I'm sorry. cmro.travis-starnes.com. Just look up complete Marvel reading order. They do reading orders for all sorts of characters and comic books, and you can look up pretty much any character, and you'll get info on practically everything they've been involved in. So originally I just looked at it because it's like, oh, here's every appearance that he's been in, which is by itself pretty damn useful. But also it's a reading order, so sometimes issues will come out, like the Incredible Hulk, an issue will come out every month, and generally you can just follow along with those. Like, you could just read those and be fine, but the Hulk will also make appearances in other issues, in other comics. He'll team up with the Fantastic Four for an issue, or the Avengers, or Spider-Man, or so on and so forth, or really specifically the Defenders. And he will do stuff in those issues, and it's not like you need to read those to understand things, per se, but they'll occasionally reference different comics, different appearances in other comics, and be like, hey, this happened in this comic. Go check it out. And so sometimes the timeline can be a little wonky, because they try to get it to match up with, like, the Hulk's present location. Like, if he's in Russia or something in his comic, and then it jumps over to the Defenders, they need to show that the Hulk is in Russia at that time. And maybe he'll bounce off and do something for that issue, but by the end of the issue, to fix the continuity, he has to get back to Russia. Things like that. So the comic book, the reading order shows the order in which you should read the comics. It will deviate sometimes from the published order, chronologically, to just show you the best way to read them, to, have a coherent plot that continues through. So they might sometimes jump away from the Hulk series and go to the Defenders series for like 10 issues, because there's a big Defenders arc that takes place like smack dab in the middle of 2 Hulk issues. And so if you just try to go by the chronological published order, you're going to be jumping back and forth between plots constantly, and that's annoying. So I'm really glad that this reading order exists. And I don't know if it's so good for every character. The Hulk is really popular, so his is well defined. But yeah, it's been very nice, very useful. And they also list, if you're really curious, you don't want to read everything, they also list which issues are deemed essential. So, like the really big issues that have big, impactful moments, plot developments, things like that. There are not many essential issues in the first, 15 years or whatever. But like Wolverine's first appearance, which was in a Hulk comic, they mark that as essential, because that's like a big comic book moment. So if you're just scrolling through and reading, the few essential comics, that's something you probably want to see if you're interested in just the big moments. But I read everything. So this video, which is already, I know it's going to be long, this video is covering the very first issue of Incredible Hulk. So that's 1962. And it is going through 1976, like the middle of 1976, because I have just finished reading Incredible Hulk number 200, which was a bit of a landmark issue. So I've read, it's about, give or take, 240 issues of comics so far, and I'm going to talk about them. I took some screenshots of things along the journey. I wish I had sort of taken more screenshots earlier on, so you're mostly going to see later issue stuff in the 70s of different moments. Originally, I just started taking screenshots of stuff that I thought was funny, just for my personal use. I wasn't planning on making a video. But then, as time went on, I was like, I have a lot of stuff I could say about the Hulk as I go on this crazy, epic comic book journey. So I started taking screenshots of funny stuff and things that might warrant a discussion as related to the Hulk. So I have just a bunch of screenshots here in largely a chronological order. And I'm just going to flip through and talk about them. So, the Hulk, I assume you're all fairly familiar with just the basics. He is a doctor, Bruce Banner, who, as you'll see, gets blasted with gamma radiation, and that causes him to occasionally turn into the Hulk, who is a massive, muscular creature that is driven by rage, and the madder he gets, the stronger he gets. That's pretty simple, and some things will cause him to turn back into Bruce Banner, and then back into the Hulk, and so on and so forth. The Hulk was... The inspiration for the Hulk was... The baseline was, of course, The Thing from Fantastic Four, because remember, Fantastic Four was hugely popular. It seems sort of weird nowadays to think about that, because it's like, who gives a shit about the Fantastic Four? But the Fantastic Four were, like, the thing in comics, and The Thing was the most popular character in the Fantastic Four. So he was sort of the baseline, but then they were influenced by Frankenstein. You can very clearly, right there, see the Frankenstein influence in just the head, the bone structure, and the face, and the gray. Yeah, it's you can see the Frankenstein influence. And, of course, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You have the Doctor, who occasionally turns into the wild, monstrous creature. So that's pretty much it. It's The Thing mixed with Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's the main influence. So let's continue. So here we have you see three very important characters in the Hulk series. On the right there, you have Bruce Banner. In blue, you have General Thunderbolt Ross, who is the main military individual that is opposed to the Hulk. And you can see right away he does not care for Bruce Banner either. He calls him a milksop. And for some reason, they made this character obsessed with the word milksop. He refers to Bruce Banner as this all the time early on. But then he drops it and never mentions it again. So yeah, General Thunderbolt Ross is just a very traditional, typical, military man that's all about, might makes right and power. And obviously he didn't get along too great with Bruce Banner. And the woman there is Betty Ross, who is Bruce Banner's love interest. And she's fairly important early on, and then there's a long stretch where she's really not relevant, because she gets married to another character, because she realizes... Actually, she gets married to him during a time when she believes the Hulk and Bruce to be dead, which of course he was not. But she realizes that she just cannot keep pining for this man who is essentially lost. There's just no way she can have a happy relationship with Bruce Banner. So she marries another character, Glenn Talbot. And so she's really not especially relevant to Bruce and the Hulk for a while. But I took a screenshot of this because this was very typical, I feel, of how they treated women characters early on. Is just keep out of this. This is man talk. Alright, so here, this is a very important series of panels. This is, come on, this is iconic shit. So, Bruce Banner was a physicist, a scientist who was working on a gamma bomb for the military, and they were doing their first test, and for whatever reason, this young lad, Rick Jones, managed to drive onto the testing site to play his harmonica and hang out. Because some kids bet him that he wouldn't make it sneak past the guards. So, yeah, great military. So, the only one willing to rush out to save him is the scientist in charge of it, Bruce Banner. And so they fire accidentally, the gamma bomb goes off. Bruce Banner gets caught in it. He's bathed in the full force of the mysterious gamma rays. And He is infected with him. And then he wakes up a little while later. He is still Bruce Banner. He is not turned into Hulk immediately, but then we get to this scene. This is the very first Hulk transformation. There's a Geiger counter measuring the massive amounts of radiation contained within Bruce, and boom, he is suddenly the Hulk. So yeah, he looks incredibly goofy here, and of course he has sort of this bluish, grayish skin. Also, he does not rip out of his shirt, which, yeah, the Hulk, by and large, never ever appears with a shirt. There's a few instances where he's in disguise, because some other character, usually Doctor Strange, puts a disguise on him, so he's wearing like a trench coat or something. But yeah, they didn't make him shirtless right away. So this grayish skin really only lasted this single issue. In the second issue, he's sort of half and half gray and half green. It depends on the panel. He sort of shifts around, but there are some panels in the second issue where he is definitively green, and then after that, he was always green. So, Gray Hulk was just this first original issue, but I believe much later on, Gray Hulk is an actual thing. I've not gotten to that, so I can't talk about it. Okay, so here we have the Hulk turning back into Bruce Banner. This was pretty quick. This is still in the first issue. So you can see here, the Hulk turns back into Bruce when the sun rays of dawn hit him. And at the very instant the first rays of dawn appear, he turns back into Bruce. So they could not decide for a long time how they wanted to handle the transitions between the Hulk and Bruce. So you see here, every night he turns into the Hulk, and every morning he turns back. That did not last incredibly long. Then, this was months ago I read this stuff, so I'm not totally remembering, but for a while, whenever he got hit with gamma radiation, he would turn into Hulk or turn back. So for a while, he could actively control it by going to a specific machine that he built that allowed him to just lay down and be zapped with rays, and he would turn into the Hulk or Bruce. And then, for a long while, he was turned into the Hulk whenever he got sort of excited. It was not anger. Anger was not mentioned for a large number of issues as being the cause of the transformation. It was specifically like nervousness or excitability or something like that. It might have even been like heart rate or something like that, but they never mentioned anger for a long time. And then that sort of developed, and eventually they're like, even up to like issue 200, they really don't ever mention, like, specifically anger as being the cause of the transformation. Most of the time he transforms into the Hulk later on is because he's getting his ass whooped. And we'll talk about Bruce Banner more later on. There is one instance, I do have a screenshot of it much later on. It's like the first instance that I recall where he actively chooses. He like brings on the transformation himself by like focusing and stuff. But yeah, most of the time he just gets his ass beat and he gets excited or whatever, and then he turns. It's really sort of just a necessity. But yeah. So Rick Jones is his buddy early on. He saves him from the thing, and there's a number, the first, the first 6 issues of The Incredible Hulk is with him and Rick Jones hanging out. Bruce Banner tries to solve, he tries to fix this disease or whatever he thinks he has, this problem, and Rick Jones sort of helps him out. They construct like this underground sort of prison system, like this prison thing, where they try because he changes like every night. So they're like, okay, I'm just lock me in this cave prison every night, and hopefully I don't bash my way out as the Hulk, and in the morning I'll turn back and everything will be okay. That of course does not work at all. Hulk immediately bashes out. In fact, God, it's countless times so far that I've read that they've tried to capture the Hulk in many different ways, and every single time the Hulk breaks out almost immediately. So it's getting a little old at this point, but so yeah, Rick Jones is a very good friend of the Hulk, and in one issue, for whatever reason, he actually gains control of the Hulk. And the Hulk, he mind controls the Hulk or something like that. And so whatever he tells the Hulk to do, he immediately responds and does it. That lasts like an issue or something. And then the Hulk, he pisses off Rick Jones for some reason. I don't even remember. It was when the Avengers were involved. And Rick Jones decides to team up with the Avengers instead of Hulk. And Rick Jones forms this radio, this boy radio group that helps correspond with the Avengers or something like that. And then I have not read the Avengers much because the Hulk is only in the Avengers group for 3 issues. So I don't know everything that really happens to Rick Jones, but I have not seen Rick Jones in a comic in the last 100 issues. He just completely disappears from the Hulk's life. So, oh well. Okay, so this is from the 4th issue or something like that. Again, you can see Rick Jones sort of helping him out. And General Ross swearing that he will rid the world of the Hulk. But the really interesting thing I want to show you here is you're probably used to the Hulk jumping. You might not be used to the Hulk flying. And yeah, I mean, you can look at that lower right panel. Look at this. This is flying. This is not jumping. This is flying. He is curving in a different direction. He is flying. And they didn't just draw this weird or anything like that. He very specifically is flying. I don't have another screenshot, but there was a point where he swooped over, grabbed, I think it was Rick Jones, out of a Jeep, and then swooped up without touching the ground. That is not a jump. That is flight. And they had to a little bit later, they actually had to have characters say it looks like he's flying, but he's not. He's jumping. Or the narrator said something like that. They wanted to clarify. They're like, look, we're dumb. The Hulk cannot fly, all right? That's ridiculous. But there was another issue I cannot find. I don't know what it was. It was early on. The Hulk gets knocked off a bridge, and he's falling off of the bridge. And he literally uses his physical strength. This is what the narration says. He uses his incredible physical strength to bounce back up onto the bridge. He never hits the ground. This is while he's falling. It's literally the most bullshit thing I've ever seen in any of the comic books. Just absurd. I don't know what they were thinking. Why not just let him hit the ground and jump back up? Why did he need to bounce back, defying every law of physics? I don't know. So yeah, the Hulk could fly for a few issues. Alright, some of you might have seen this before. I don't know how well-versed you are in comics or not, but this is the very first issue of the Avengers. This is the OG team. So you, of course, have Thor. You've got original Iron Man. Yes, that's how he looked for, I think it was 2 issues or something like that. He got a better outfit pretty quickly. You have the Hulk, of course. And then you have Ant-Man and the Wasp. Although the Wasp is not named on the cover because she's a woman. So that's the OG team right there. And they recruit the Hulk because they're like, hey, the Hulk's powerful, he's cool, we could use his help. And the Hulk does not play nice with teams, really, almost at all. So I think in the second Avengers issue, it's like a villain that wants to divide the Avengers. It's sort of like Civil War. And so he basically like tricks the Hulk into thinking that they're all against him and they don't like him. So he's just like, all right, fuck this and fuck you, and he jumps away and he never is a part of the Avengers again, as far as I know, as far as I've read. I mean, but yeah, the first issue they're fighting Loki. So this is some old school shit. All right, so this is from Fantastic Four issue. This was right after the Incredible Hulk original series ended. So he appeared in a Fantastic Four issue as a guest star, and he turned into Bruce Banner fairly quickly for whatever reason. And you see here, if you look at the text, it refers to him as Dr. Bob Banner. Multiple times, very quickly. Dr. Bob Banner, all but unrecognizable. When the Hulk is tireless, Bob Banner is exhausted. I'll have the identity of Bob Banner. So yeah, Stan Lee completely forgot the name of his own character. He created this character. He had written it already for 6 issues without a mistake, and then boom, Bob Banner. Apparently there's a similar mistake where they refer to Spider-Man as Superman or something like that in one issue, which is pretty funny. So, because of this mistake, they had to canonize this. They couldn't just be like, wow, we fucked up. No. Because of this mistake, his full name is Robert Bruce Banner. It's like the very next issue or something like that. They refer to him a bunch of times as Robert Bruce Banner. Like, hey, we didn't make a mistake. His name is Robert Bruce Banner, didn't you know? They never, ever call him Bob Banner ever again. But for many, many issues at the top of it, when they're describing the Hulk character, they refer to him as Dr. Robert Bruce Banner. So that is his full name, but almost never will a character refer to him as Robert Bruce Banner or Robert Banner. He's still very often just Bruce Banner. But yeah, so there you go. That's pretty funny. So I don't know if even most people know that his name is Robert Bruce Banner, but that is why. It's because Stan Lee forgot. All right, so let me flip back through. You're going to see a bunch of shit. This is just the way the folder is set up. Let me get back to the very start. So those screenshots are those really early ones. I just went back and retook them because I had never done that. I didn't take screenshots that early on. But now this is apparently when I started taking screenshots for real. So this was... I don't know what issue this is from. I'm sure this is from some Tales to Astonish. And these early ones are just stuff that I thought was humorous. And maybe you will as well. So here's the Hulk crashing through a wall, saying, "Do not worry, woman. The Hulk is here." Yeah, so the depictions of black people in the 60s and 70s is a little odd sometimes. So this sort of Key Ripe situation, I don't know. For whatever reason, I got a chuckle out of it, and I decided to take a picture. So here you go. Here's a pretty traditional plot from the early days. Hell is a very small Hulk. He gets blasted with Hank Pym's weird rays that make him very small. This happens a number of times. The Hulk gets shrunk a good number of times, sometimes voluntarily, sometimes involuntarily. This was the very first time, and so he had to deal with some plague rats. Which is very funny, because you're no match for those plague rats. It's like, he's the fucking Hulk, alright? He is unlimited strength. I think he can handle them. And here you can see him handling them. Hulk will not be cheese for giant rats. And so there's him beating the shit out of a bunch of big rats. So here, this is him. Gosh, I can't even remember the situation. In some theme park or whatever. He's in a civilized area, and this kid is beating on him. So he just very calmly says, "Hulk does not smash children." That's good. That's good, Hulk. I'm glad you don't smash children. So yeah, Hulk is not a very intelligent character, as you probably are aware. But, I mean, the baseline, it differs depending on things, but baseline Hulk is not very intelligent, so he was sort of reflecting at the end of an issue. Hulk made friends here, and Hulk learned something about himself. So hard to remember what Hulk learned. Yeah, he has a notoriously terrible memory. That will often get him in trouble, where he'll forget things like 30 seconds later. So yeah, the Hulk actually learning a lesson, that's, yeah, that doesn't happen too often. So here is Bruce Banner in a situation, and this is supposed to be sweat. It does not look like sweat. That's all I can say about that. Alright, so, this is a funny screenshot, because it's Doctor Strange riding the Hulk, who is wearing the Cloak of Levitation. So that alone is pretty funny. That's why I took the screenshot. But this also shows the main 3 characters in the Defenders. So in the mainstream world, the Defenders are practically unknown, I'm sure. Because they are basically the lesser Avengers. But the Defenders, this is the main crew here. It's the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Namor the Submariner, who's also a character probably not very well known among the mainstream. The Silver Surfer was involved very early on. I think in the first couple issues, Silver Surfer was part of the group. But this has been the main crew for quite a while. Namor eventually is like, you know, he just says fuck off and he just leaves for a while. He does his own thing. I really have no idea how popular Namor is. Like, during this time period, I'm not really sure. He had to share a comic with Hulk for a while. So that tells me he didn't seem that popular, but he's basically Aquaman, but yeah, he's basically Aquaman. I really didn't read much of his for when the Hulk was sharing with him. I pretty much skipped his whole section and just went to the Hulk. Doctor Strange, of course, I'm sure you're all familiar with. This was it for a while. They got a couple other characters. They got, oh my gosh. Let me look. I want to say Nighthawk, but I feel like I should know. Yeah, Nighthawk. So Nighthawk is sort of discount Batman. He is a very wealthy guy named Kyle Richmond. And he dresses up as a hawk and fights crime. He was originally a villain, but he joined up with the Defenders for a while. And then they also had Valkyrie. So the Valkyrie, who you may have seen in Thor Ragnarok, she is from Asgard, and she joins up with the Defenders for a while. She has a horse. She has a flying horse named Aragorn. That you might not know, which is pretty cool. They named it Aragorn. So the Defenders are kind of lame. I mean, everything is kind of lame in this time period. There's nothing like, holy shit, this is so badass. Everything's pretty lame. But really the interactions between the Hulk and Doctor Strange are probably my favorite part of the Defender comics. Because Doctor Strange is really, like, really intelligent and wise and mystic and, you know, stuff like that. And then you have the Hulk, who's basically a child, but a very dangerous child. And so, yeah, there's a lot of funny interactions between the two of them, and obviously you can see here he's riding him, and so on and so forth. So, For a lot of Defenders comics, I'll sort of just skim through them looking for the Hulk. Because that's what I'm interested in, you know. I'm reading all this to read about the Hulk. So when you're reading a comic and it's like other characters just talking to each other and doing things, and the Hulk is not even a part of it, I'll just skip through that shit. So I've been looking at every Defenders comic and going through them, but not necessarily reading everything. Because the Hulk, again, like I said, he does not play nice with teams most of the time. So he'll sort of just get left in the background for a lot. They'll just call him in to like punch things, and then he just doesn't say anything for like 5 pages. So usually I go through Defenders comics pretty quickly, but he is a main part of the Defenders. Like, he has been in almost every single issue in some way. And there's quite a few issues. So I'm still going through those. So here, Hulk is beating up big monkeys. And he does not want to hear from them. And all they did apparently was make gestures, according to Namor. But the Hulk's not dealing with that shit. So here he was fighting Spider-Man, and yeah, it's bullshit. Like, the Hulk has really no reason to fight Spider-Man. They just have to come up with this contrived nonsense to fill up a comic issue. But he was dueling out with Spider-Man, and of course there's another villain involved, and blah, blah, blah. So I think, yeah, so at one point they're fighting like on a dam or something like that, and it starts leaking. And so, of course, you know, Hulk smashes. That's what the Hulk does. And so, to stop the wall from leaking, of course, he would punch it. That's what he wanted. He wanted it to stop leaking, but it didn't. Why doesn't anything listen to Hulk? Yeah, the Hulk is just... It depends on the writer. Sometimes he's just sort of like... sometimes he's kind of just like Frankenstein-esque, where he's not like really stupid. He just sort of has this childlike innocence to him, behind, you know, all these muscles and rage and stuff. And then other times he is legitimately just retarded. I think this is a good example of just retarded Hulk. There are versions of Hulk, I feel, from other writers where he would not smash a wall to stop it from leaking, but the line, "Why doesn't anything listen to Hulk?" Is pretty good. Here's another pretty stupid Hulk, or actually not so stupid, because he actually did remember. So this is him bursting out of like a submarine thing into the ocean, and so he remembers he's back in water, and he has to think about not talking. Some people, I guess a lot of people wouldn't know this, but the Hulk never shuts up. Ever. You know, the Hulk that I guess a lot of people are used to, where he's just sort of silent and grunting, and maybe he'll say Hulk smash. That is not original comic Hulk. This is original comic Hulk. This is a standard Hulk panel where he is constantly talking during a situation. And he repeats a lot of things. He refers to himself always as the Hulk. And he does say Hulk smash a lot, or puny humans, or something like that. He does repeat himself a lot, but he never shuts up. And so, yeah, it makes sense. He would have to remember not to talk, because otherwise he would just constantly talk. Yeah. So, here you have Hawkeye, the Archer. This was an issue where they paired up to take down Zax, which is sort of a lightning monster. And this was a Hulk comic, but Hawkeye was actually mainly responsible for taking out Zax. And so this is him climbing out of the water after being victorious. And it's just so funny. I'm just thinking of... what the hell is his name? I can't even think of his name. The actor that plays Hawkeye in the MCU. I'm just thinking of him like performing this line of, "I did it, I won! And even better, it was spectacular! Now people are gonna know who I am for sure." and know me as me, not as one of the Avengers. Just Hawkeye trying to stand on his own. You know, I don't need the Avengers. Yeah. All right. So here you have... I don't know if it was the first big crossover as far as superheroes go in Marvel. Because, again, I don't follow the Avengers. This was from a Defenders comic, but you see a bunch of Avengers on the panel here. So maybe there was another crossover that the Hulk was not a part of, and so I didn't read it. But the Hulk was part of this, and this was a big crossover. So this was really 14 characters. You can see here, you see Black Panther in the background there. You got Iron Man blasting something, Doctor Strange in the middle, Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Vision, I want to say Mantis? And then this guy in the lower right, I can't remember, I apologize. I thought at the time, I was like, I'm going to discuss this at some point. I should make a note of who this guy is. I forgot. And then there's another guy sort of in the middle left there above Captain America. I can't... he looks completely featureless, so I don't remember. Possibly Silver Surfer, but I don't know. I thought I took more screenshots from that situation. Did I really not take a picture with the Hulk in it? No, I didn't. I'm surprised. I thought I would take... There were some big group shots. I'm surprised I didn't take a picture of them. But yeah, so this was a very big crossover event. This was a big arc. It took place over a number of issues. And it involved Loki teaming up with Dormammu. Yeah, holy shit, right? That's pretty crazy. That's a pretty big threat. And so all the big heroes here, they all banded together. 14 of the greatest heroes. Maybe. They all teamed up and they went to go kick Loki and Dormammu's ass. And almost all of them got wiped out, like, practically immediately. Like, right after this. Almost all of them are just done. From one reason or another. And the only one remaining... The only one standing, I'll let you guess. The character is on this panel. I'll let you guess who's the only one standing. It was Scarlet Witch in the lower left. She was the only one standing, and she was responsible for taking out Dormammu and Loki. Dormammu had, like, channeled all this energy to, like, blast the universe or something like that, and she, like, redirected it back to him and turned him to dust or something like that. She, like, obliterated him. It was all Scarlet Witch. And that's really crazy, because if you saw, I mean, if you've been watching this video early on, you saw how they treated their female characters. That lasted for a while. So when I was reading this, I was shocked that they had Scarlet Witch among all these big characters. You got Captain America and Doctor Strange and Iron Man and Vision and the Hulk. And Scarlet Witch is the one to save the day. Like, they were all wiped out except for her. So I thought that was a big moment. Maybe. I mean, it was for my reading timeline. It felt like a big moment that Scarlet Witch was the hero, the heroine. All right, so I like this one. This is a great panel here. Would you agree that in the realm of comics, these two beings are the best there are, the only true Titans, referring to the Hulk and Thor? I would agree, because they're a couple of my very favorite comic book characters, so certainly the only true Titans. So yeah, this is the start of a fight between the Hulk and Thor. This is actually their second fight. I did not take any screenshots of their first fight. It didn't seem incredibly special. But I started with this panel. I was like, oh, that's a great panel. I got to screenshot that. And then you've got this one, where Thor said something about how he was superior. And so Hulk is incredulous. You are better than Hulk? And they're referring to their first fight. And Thor says, "For though no one actually strode forth victorious, I know my prowess did exceed thine." And so it reminds me of Thor Ragnarok when, of course, Thor is trying to tell Bruce Banner that, he won their fight. And Bruce Banner is not really believing him. It reminded me so much of that. Because, no one actually won, but, I mean, come on. I'm Thor. I won. So here is the very first instance ever in comic books, as far as I know, of the Hulk trying to grab Mjolnir. And, of course, it slams to the ground, and he is completely incapable of lifting it, because the Hulk is not worthy. He is just a creature of rage. So, there you have it. And so here is, the poster shot. And even at the bottom, if you can read the text there, it says, of course you can use this page for a pinup. Buy a second copy and pin this up. This is a poster shot. OG stuff here of the Hulk fighting Thor. Half mythical forms. And, oh, yes. I kind of want a poster of this because it's pretty badass. The Hulk looks sort of constipated. But still, it's pretty cool. I'll let you just read this one. So Rick Jones had been gone for some time. And they decided, I guess, that Hulk needed another buddy. And so they got a young black boy named Jim Wilson, who's a bit more street savvy than Rick Jones was, a bit more nuanced than Rick Jones. And so he became buddies with the Hulk. And he also was adopted by General Ross for a while, which was kind of weird. And then I guess he grew up enough. He actually aged. And he's like, I don't need this shit, man. I'm out of here. And so he left. But yeah, really this character does not pop up often. It's like one in every 30 issues or something like that. You'll see Jim Wilson. But when he does show up, he can calm down the Hulk. The Hulk recognizes him. Alright, so recall Betty Ross. Betty Ross. You remember that I told you she married another character, Glenn Talbot, while she thought the Hulk was dead. I believe she thought the Hulk was dead because it was a time when the Hulk got zapped by the shrinking ray, and so he was very small. And he got stepped on by a character, a villain, and the step, made him, super small. It sent him to, the quantum realm. And he went to, this atomic planet. This tiny atomic planet. And there he met a woman named Jarella, I believe, who the Hulk fell in love with. But during the time when he was with Jarella, it was the Hulk body with Bruce Banner's mind. And so, Bruce Banner fell in love with her as well. I believe this is the right timeline. I think he went to the planet twice, so I may be mixing things up. But he did get stepped on, and he got shrunk down, and so Betty thought he was dead. She finally married Glenn Talbot. Glenn Talbot is a military man who works for General Ross from issue 1 or 2 or something like that. He's been there forever. And the whole time he was just pining. He was madly crushing on Betty Ross, but for a long time, Betty Ross was just, oh, Bruce, the Hulk, oh no, Bruce, I love you, Bruce. She was obsessed with Bruce Banner, and this just pissed off Glenn Talbot. But he was actually a really respectful dude. He knew that Betty Ross loved Bruce Banner more than she ever cared about Glenn Talbot. So he knew this, and he sort of stepped off. He was pretty cool about it. But eventually, the Hulk Bruce is never around. The Hulk is always smashing and getting into these situations, and she thinks that he dies 30 times, and he never does die, but she thinks it. And so she's always just distraught, and she just needs a man. And so Glenn Talbot finally steps in, and the two get married during the time when she thinks the Hulk is dead. And later on, they don't actually have a long, happy marriage. Because General Ross goes to Russia for some reason. I want to say it involves Bruce Banner, but I'm not entirely sure. He goes to Russia on a mission. I know he's a general and he's going on the mission, like he's involved. And Glenn Talbot goes with him because he said that's his duty. He's a military man. This is what he does. So he leaves Betty and he goes on the mission. While they're in Russia, they both get captured, I believe. General Ross and Glenn Talbot. But General Ross gets sort of rescued. He gets away. Whereas Glenn Talbot gets sort of the Winter Soldier treatment. He gets captured by Russians and sort of experimented on. And they basically like wipe his mind and take over his mind and stuff like that. And they eventually do rescue Glenn Talbot much later. But his mind is like... He was sort of a Manchurian candidate type thing. Like, the Russians reprogrammed his mind to go back to America and assassinate the president. And he fails, of course. And so they sort of wipe his mind of this reprogramming, but he's left like a vegetable, sort of. He has no mind at all. Which we'll talk about again later. But basically, like, Betty Ross is very distraught, because now she believes she's lost 2 men. And she blames Bruce. Well, sort of. Like, internally, she sort of blames Bruce for the situation, and by extension, the Hulk. And she gets blasted through some other situation. She gets blasted by gamma radiation. And because of her... I guess it was like all the time that she spent around like the military base and with Bruce and stuff, I guess. The gamma radiation affected her in a special way, and she became the Harpy. Which is what you're seeing on screen. This is her as the Harpy. She's got these big wings and she's got like talons and stuff. And so she bumps into Bruce, and she... Again, that feeling of blaming Bruce for, what happened to Glenn, I guess, it really erupted as the Harpy, and so she attacked him, and he turned into the Hulk, and they fought. So this panel is from like the middle of their fight. The Hulk sort of like knocked her around for a while, and so she's trying to play it off like, "Oh, I'm Betty, I love you," because the Hulk has a very soft spot for Betty Ross, of course. He also has a very soft spot for women. Pretty much any girl, he will just... He's like putty in their hands. He has a very strong soft spot for women. And he'll almost never hit women. Other than like the Harpy here, and one panel when he was like sort of berserk a little bit and he smacked Valkyrie. And I think he apologized later. So she got turned into the Harpy. They fought. And of course, she was turned back into Betty Ross. This was like one issue. It was very short-lived. But there was the funniest thing. It was like, at the end of a bunch of comics of these issues, they have letters from fans. And so one guy wrote in, and he's like, "Oh man, the Harpy was so badass." He didn't say bad. He said, "The Harpy was so great," and blah, blah, blah. I was really hoping you would kill off the Hulk and replace him with the Harpy and rename the comic to the Harpy. This guy really wanted this. It was absurd. I had never read anything so absurd. Like, no, the Harpy? Come on, man. So, yeah. All right. So, this is a perfect representation. This cover right here is perfect representation of the first couple hundred issues of Hulk comics that I've read. So, you see here, you've got this creature. I forgot what it's called. And the Hulk says, "No, it's not fair, not fair. Hulk could fight that monster. Hulk could win. But Bruce Banner can only die." So, my biggest problem so far with these comics has been the representation of Bruce Banner. Now, the thing is, the comic book is called The Incredible Hulk. The comic is not called The Incredible Bruce Banner. It is not called Bruce and the Hulk. You know, it's not called anything like that. It is called The Hulk. People read this comic to see the Hulk. So there is not a single issue where the Hulk does not make an appearance. And I understand that, you know, I get that at the time, like, you know, yeah, the Hulk, he's so cool, he smashes, and, you know, you've got a young audience, that's what they want to see, you know, they don't want to see nuanced characters and blah, blah, blah. It's called the Hulk, you get the Hulk every time. There, you know, you don't have to worry, like, oh, is the Hulk not going to be in this one? Is this going to be a Bruce Banner is this going to be a Bruce issue? Like, no, the Hulk's going to be there, you don't have to worry. I get that, but I don't really like that, because what I like about the Hulk is that dichotomy. You know, it's the fact that you have both Bruce and the Hulk. They're complete opposites, and yet they have their similarities. You know, they do sort of work in harmony. The Hulk would not be interesting if he was just the Hulk. And there were letters written by people that said, just kill off Bruce and just have the Hulk. You know, they don't want to ever see Bruce Banner. They think he's a shit character. They only want the Hulk. And to be fair, the way Bruce is depicted in these early issues, he is a shit character. He has no personality because he's not given a chance to develop a personality. And really, most characters early on here do not have much of a personality. You're either just, I'm a good guy, I do good things all the time, or I'm a bad guy, I'll slit your baby's throat for a nickel and blah blah blah, yeah, I'm a villain. And the reason for this is largely the comic code. You can see there in the upper right, if you squint, approved by the Comics Code Authority. So the comic code was enacted in the, I want to say 50s, but don't quote me on that. And it was revised in like 1971. So these comics all have the revised comic code, but the revised comic code is not that different from the original one. Basically, the comic code was very similar to like the Hays Code for movies back in the day, where it was just like, you cannot show anything that would ever be deemed offensive in any way. You know, we talk about like a politically correct society nowadays. No way, man. They had these... You can look up the comic code, and I invite you to do so. You can read the list of rules for the original comic code. You cannot show like you can't show blood. You can't show like any sort of extreme violence whatsoever. You can't show any nudity. You can't show any seduction of any kind. That's straight out. You can't show any zombies. You can't show any vampires. You can't show anything like that. But really, most importantly, you cannot show in any way, shape, or form evil or villainy or crime as successful or as alluring or anything like that. Crime and villainy can never, ever, ever succeed in any way. Like, this is a rule. And you cannot show like corrupt officials. Like, you cannot show corrupt police or judges or anything like that. Mayors. The revised code sort of worked on that a little bit. Like, you can show sort of corrupt people, but you can never show it in like an alluring light. Like, they always have to get their comeuppance. They always have to fail in the end. You can have corrupt people, but they are treated as criminals, and they will be, you know, justice will serve. So good always succeeds, no matter what. And evil always fails. Okay? This was in the code. So when they're writing these comics, they have to abide by this code. They cannot deviate. And I understand why they didn't deviate, like why they stuck to this code. Because if you're a parent buying a comic for your kid, and you see like, oh, there's violence and stuff, and but it's approved by the Comics Code Authority, so I know that good is gonna win. You know, there's nothing seductive about evil or villainy or crime. You know, it's just good, clean, wholesome fun. Sure, you can read this. I don't have any problems with that. You know, without that, you're operating as some rogue authority, you know, publishing whatever you want. You know, who knows what's in that comic? A parent's not going to go to that when they have something that they know is clean fun. So things were very just clean and safe back in these days, in the 70s. Who would have thought? So Marvel eventually abandoned the comic code in 2001, I want to say, in the 2000s. And so that allowed them to expand a lot more in plot ideas and offer a lot more nuance and things like that. Because by the 2000s, who gives a shit about the comics code? I mean, come on. But anyways, Bruce Banner. Since people are reading these comics for the Hulk, and the Hulk itself is interesting because he is a good guy, but he is also sort of a monster. He's referred to a monster a lot of times. He does not exactly operate by the rules of society, and yet he can't be marked as a criminal per se, because crime is not allowed to succeed, and he's supposed to be the hero. So I like that the Hulk sort of skirts the lines of the comic code. He's a hero, he's a superhero, but he's also kind of monstrous, and he's a rebel. Bruce Banner, in the very few times, of course, he is presented, he is, of course, the goody-goody two-shoes. He wants to help everybody. He's always like, oh, yeah, I'll do anything you want. I'm a great hero guy. You know. And so I can understand people not really loving Bruce Banner because he's just so vanilla and just, ugh. You know, this is not like later comics where Bruce and they can really go into the psychology of the differences and the similarities between Bruce and the Hulk and how he's wrestling with this. I think they could have done this, but people didn't want that. They just wanted the Hulk, and so they got the Hulk. And so, you do not get a lot of Bruce Banner. If you're looking for Bruce Banner in these early comics, you will not find him. He will show up maybe once every 3 or 4 comics, and he will show up for a few pages. Usually, he'll just, like, wake up in a strange location, because he doesn't know how he got there. And he'll bumble around for a little while. Maybe he'll get some clothes on, but usually he's seen shirtless, as you can see. Also, you can see the Hulk's purple pants turning to orange, which is interesting. And then something will piss him off, or, you know, something will try to kill him, because, oh god, you got this shirtless man out in the wild. Kill him! Something will try to kill him. He's like, no, wait, stop! And then they don't stop, and they don't stop, and he turns into the Hulk. And then that's it. That's all you get for Bruce Banner for a while. So, yeah, for a long time, basically, he turns into Bruce Banner whenever it's like, let's just change it up a little bit. Let's just change it up for a few pages. Where it's like, oh, this will be really unfortunate for Bruce Banner if he turns back into Bruce at this time. Because he needs to be the Hulk. He's going to get killed if he's not the Hulk. Oh, gosh. So this is just a perfect representation of these comics. Because it's like, yeah, the Hulk could win, but oh gosh, he's Bruce now. In this middle of this hectic scenario, he's Bruce. Oh god, oh no, this is bad. Oh, don't worry, he's back to the Hulk. He's gonna kick ass. And that's it. Alright, so this was probably the biggest fuck up since the whole flying debacle and the whole Bob Banner debacle. The Hulk fell out of like a flying city or something like that. He actually fell with Betty Ross. It was from this issue. So they're 8 miles up. You can see disaster 8 miles high. They both fall out of the sky. Betty Ross is actually naked, I believe, at this moment. It was one of the only times they didn't show nudity, but they clothe her in like shadows and stuff. But they definitely say that she is naked. So, I don't know if that's allowed by the comics code. Maybe they got reprimanded. I don't know. But anyways, so they're falling out of the flying city. 8 miles up, and so we get this text. Consider a moment, an 8-mile free fall at a constant acceleration of 32 feet per second squared. An easy equation for a physicist. Impact velocity, about 11,000 miles per hour. But let's not think about that part of it. If you don't know what's wrong with this panel, please go back to school. Please. There are actually two main things wrong with this. One, their math is actually wrong. I guess they added an extra 0 or so onto that 11,000 miles. 8 miles at a constant acceleration of 32 feet per second squared. It is not 11,000. That would be bad enough. But if you know anything about terminal velocity, you know how ridiculously bullshit this is. Because when you are falling from that kind of height, it is not a constant acceleration. You do reach a point where there's like equilibrium between gravity and some other force. I don't know all the science behind it, but there is a limit to how fast you will fall, and you will stay at that limit until you impact something or something affects you. So yeah, if it was the Hulk hitting Earth at 11,000 miles per hour, keep in mind the Hulk is like 1,400 pounds. I don't know exactly what that would do to like the country, but I feel like it would be pretty fucking bad. So no, of course he does not do. He leaves like a small crater when he lands, which is ridiculous. But yeah, this math is, oh god, it was just so terrible. And yes, they did get letters about this, and they admitted how pretty much bad they fucked up. So that's nice. Okay, so this is right after this. The Hulk fell down to the earth with Betty. So he's out in the wilderness with Betty as the Hulk. And they are hanging out in the wilderness together. So he needs to feed Betty Ross. The Hulk doesn't really need to eat. It's never shown any effects of him going without food. Because obviously there's a lot of issues. He goes and he spends all this time in, like, you know, the wilderness or whatever without getting any food. He does like food, though, as you'll see. But Betty Ross needs food, and the Hulk knows that, so he goes to hunt down this deer. He's about to throw this big rock at this deer, and he says he's sorry. He must kill you for Betty. He must. But then he decides he cannot do it. He cannot. So this is pretty interesting, because you assume the Hulk is just this monster. You know, why would he care about killing a deer? You know, he destroys cities. But no, I feel like, again, this is sort of pointing to the comic code, where it's like, no, he needs to be a hero. A hero would not just kill a deer, even though I feel like killing a deer to survive in the wilderness, like, who the fuck is judging you for this? But this panel, this page is interesting for a different reason you'll see a little bit later, involving a deer. Okay, so this is the other thing I want to show. So this is, oh god. So there was a bit of an arc here with, I don't even know what the planet is called. It's like Earth Negative or something like that. So on the other side of the sun, in like a perfect synchronous orbit with Earth, so we never can see it, is a Earth duplicate. It's like an opposite Earth. And there on that planet, they have a bunch of beast men and stuff. And the Hulk goes there a couple times. But this time, this arc, he encounters this guy named Adam Warlock. If you only follow the MCU, and you don't follow comics, at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, there's the little stinger where they mention like a perfect human or a perfect being or something like that, and they show the name as like Warlock or Adam or something like. I don't remember which one, but they're referring to this guy right here in the middle with the blonde hair. That's Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock, at least in this arc that I have read, I've not read anything else about him. In this arc, he is Jesus Christ. like, this isn't like Superman is really kind of Jesus. Like, no, he is Jesus Christ. Yes, he looks different. Yes, he's sort of a superhero type thing, but he is Jesus Christ. You see here, this panel is a depiction of the Last Supper. He is meant to be Jesus. Like, the writers acknowledge this. He sacrifices himself on a cross for the good of the planet. And after he dies on the cross, he enters like a cocoon for 3 days. And he comes out of the cocoon and he ascends into space. He says, I have to leave now. I have other things to do, but, go with God. And I don't think he says that. But during reading it, I was like, this is Jesus Christ. And yeah, the letters from fans later confirm this. I looked at it like, yeah, he's Jesus. So yeah, this is the Hulk in The Last Supper, which is pretty interesting. But that actually was not the reason I took this picture. I took this picture because of the words here. For the Hulk, it's one of the most fulfilling periods of his haunted life. A time of learning, a time of belonging, a time of happiness that climaxes and even 1 week later. So this is a really oddball thing. It is shown many times throughout the series, the Hulk turns back into Bruce Banner when he relaxes. Like, when he really, just lets his guard down, he relaxes, he goes to sleep, he's peaceful. He slips back into Bruce Banner. That happens a lot. And then there are times like this, where an entire week goes by, and it's the most fulfilling, happy times of his entire life, and he doesn't change back into Bruce Banner. And there are other times where this happens, where he goes to sleep. He's incredibly peaceful and just relaxed. He does not turn back into Bruce. And even letters called the writers out on this. They're like, what the fuck is going? How come he turns sometimes and he doesn't turn the other times? And they're basically like, well, look, nobody really understands how the Hulk transformation works, so it's very complicated and blah blah blah. Basically, it's just like, shut up, kid. This is comic books. We decide how things work. So yeah, the more you read comics, the more you realize how kind of bullshit they are a lot of the times. Things just happen whenever writers fucking feel like it. And so that's why it never makes sense to be like, could the Hulk beat Thor? And could the Hulk beat Spider-Man? Could Captain America beat the Hulk? And it's like, look, if the writers want Hawkeye to beat Galactus, Hawkeye will fucking beat Galactus. That's just how it is. This is not a real-world simulation that they're running here. They're just writing shit that they think is entertaining. There's no rules. Alright, so here we go. This is the thing I was talking about earlier related to Bruce and the Hulk. So they got a bunch of letters for a while. There was, a bunch of comics where this sort of debate raged on. Devastation versus humanism. So this is the debate between just having the Hulk every time, no Bruce Banner, just Hulk, and just watching him kick ass and take names. Or focusing more on Bruce Banner and less on Hulk because of the fact that Bruce Banner is human and mortal and frail and intelligent. That is what makes the Hulk so interesting. So you have this guy here, sort of adding to this debate, and the writer, the editor, whatever. We have a feeling this Devastation versus humanism debate is going to be with us for quite a while, so we're keeping our collective mouth shut on the subject until we hear more from you people. Let us know where you stand on this question, or any other concerning the Hulk. What kind of stories do you most want to see? And this also sort of connects with the type of villains that the Hulk is fighting. Because a lot of issues, the Hulk is just beating up bad guys. This big monster will just show up and I want to destroy the city, and the Hulk's like, fuck you, asshole, I don't give a shit about the city, but I'm gonna punch you in the mouth. And then he punches him in the mouth, and that's the end of the issue. And then there are other issues that are a lot more nuanced and actually are far more interesting, where the villain is conflicted in a way, or is sort of depicted in a more human way, and is a little bit more hesitant about, what they're doing or being a villain. There's a really good issue starring the missing link, who is sort of another like irradiated character, and it takes place in like a mining town where the missing link was a villain that the Hulk smashed at one point. But he stuck around and he actually got a job. he became a miner in this mining town, and the people living there like didn't care that he was like he was a big pink guy. They didn't mind that. He was like, oh, he's a good guy. He mines for us and it's all good. And that was actually a big Bruce Banner issue. Bruce Banner shows up at this mining town, not as the Hulk, as Bruce. And he recognizes the missing link. And he starts hanging out with the missing link, because the missing link doesn't know who Bruce Banner is. And so he's hanging out with this guy, and he's like, oh, this is really nice. I could do this. Bruce Banner, one of the smartest people on the planet. But he knows that he can't have that life again. So he would rather just be a miner, in the mines, than rampaging around as the Hulk. So he's like, okay, if I can fit in here like the missing link, this is all good. But of course, he is one of the smartest people on the planet, so he realizes that the missing link is slowly giving off immense amounts of radiation to the people in this town, and he's actually killing them. Like, he's giving them like cancer and stuff. He's killing these people. They are dying, and no one knows why, because these are not physicists. But Bruce is there, and he like buys a Geiger counter from a store, and he like looks into this, and he realizes what is happening. He realizes the missing link is killing these people, and so he's like, fuck. He doesn't say that. I'm paraphrasing. The missing link is a villain, right? He was a bad guy. He is basically a monster, but he fits in here. He has friends here, and they all like him. Like, the kids, like, love the missing link and stuff. They're playing with him and stuff. And he's just trying to live this happy life here. But I have to fuck it up because he's killing them. So he, like, confronts the missing link, and he's like, look, I know you're happy here. I know you're doing all this shit, but you have to leave. Like, if you care about these people at all, you have to leave. And, of course, the missing link does not leave. And he gets really pissed, and of course they fight as the Hulk. Because remember, you can't have a whole issue with just Bruce Banner. That was the one notable one where Bruce like did a lot. But the Hulk finally comes out and they fight and blah, he kicks the missing link's ass. That was probably, honestly, like my favorite issue so far. Because it had a lot of Bruce Banner, and it was really like a humanized, sympathetic villain. Because he was really not a villain until the end, where he's just like, fuck! He was just really upset at the situation and what Bruce was saying. That type of issue, it was few and far between, because there are so many villains that are just like, I'm a big monster and I'm gonna kick your ass. And the Hulk's like, you can't kick my ass, I'm Hulk. So I'm definitely, I'm not on the Devastation side of this argument. But so far there have not been many issues like that. Alright. I know this video has been going on forever, but we're getting near done. Sort of. So this is the very first introduction of the Wolverine. Very first. This is his first appearance. This was the last panel of a Hulk comic, and then the Wolverine is a major part of the next issue. But this is it. This is what he looked like in his very first appearance. And he worked for the government, and he is referred to as Weapon X. And so he's sort of like, he's sent in to take down the Hulk, but of course he fails. And he's sort of got, immediately, he's got more of a personality than a lot of other characters. So a lot of people like the Wolverine immediately. And I think they were actually planning on, like, scrapping the Wolverine. Like, they were just gonna, like... There are a lot of characters, especially villains and stuff, where they only planned a single appearance for the character. They come up with this villain, they're like, it's just a one-off. Like, they only plan for him to appear once. And there are villains and there are characters that does happen. They only appear a single time ever. But for a lot of characters, they're like, hey, let's bring this guy back. Sometimes they decide it because they're like, we need to reuse something. And other times, fans really take to something. So I think they were going to scrap the Wolverine. But one of the guys that came up with the Wolverine was Canadian. And this was really like one of the first Canadian characters. And so he fought for it. He's like, no, you can't, you got to have a Canadian character in there. Come on, keep the Wolverine around. And of course, the rest is history. Oh, this was another funny one. So the Hulk's wandering around and he bumps into these two people. And he says, is only another puny human and girl dressed like animal. So he does not consider the girl to be a puny human. A girl is something different entirely. Okay. So here is the very first occasion of the Hulk writing something. Another character teaches him the alphabet. I can't remember who. It was just like some vagrant that he bumped into for a while. But he teaches him the alphabet. Although the B really looks weird. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but the B up there looks weird. And so the Hulk can spell out his name. Hulk knows Hulk's name! So that was pretty cool. So here's an issue with Magneto. And this is sort of a flashback sequence you're looking at right here. I think he fought the Avengers. And to punish him, to punish Magneto for some crime that he had committed, the Avengers put him in like a bubble and sent him to the center of the earth. That was his punishment. And he was like, the magnetic lines of force that surround the planet were in such perfect balance, they nullified my powers completely. So he had no powers. He's stuck in a bubble in the center of the earth. Like, what the fuck? Like, does he have air? Does he have food, water? Like, how does this work? And even if he does have that, he's like sustained. He's stuck in a tiny prison by himself in the center of the earth forever. Until he like dies of old age or something. Like, what the fuck, Avengers? This is terrible. Of course he does break out because like the magnetic fields of the earth wobble a little bit and he gets some power back. I don't remember how he got out of the center of the earth, but it's comic books. Yeah, I'll let you read that one. That's a nice line. Harvey Weinstein guest starred in an issue of the Defenders. Yeah, this was another funny one. Another situation with the Hulk and Spider-Man fighting each other. I like that the Hulk is he's just like walking. And Spider-Man is just beating on his head as hard as he can. And the Hulk's just like, fuck off, bug face. Like, this is perfect. Like, Spider-Man is a really, like, strong character. Like, he's got some force behind him, but this is the motherfucking Hulk, man. Here's another Defenders issue. This one, Doctor Strange encounters a homeless person on the street. I think it was Valkyrie that was really, like, sympathetic. Like, she thought it was really terrible there were homeless people, like, starving. And so Doctor Strange's like, we gotta fucking... We got shit to do. But to appease her, he teleported an entire, like, banquet table of food and drinks and stuff from the plaza, the hotel. He teleports it to this homeless person. He fucking steals it from them. He doesn't, like, duplicate it or anything like that. He steals their stuff to feed the homeless. It just seems so, like, out of character. Like, this is theft. Like, yeah, you have good intentions of feeding this homeless guy, but what the fuck? There's actually a bunch more things to go. I'll keep going. So this was another Defenders issue that crossed over with Daredevil. This was a really weird issue. It involved the Grand Master, who you may know as Jeff Goldblum in Thor Ragnarok. Looks nothing like that in comics. But he wanted them to do this big fight on a chessboard. And so there were a few of these pages in the issue where it went to like one picture and then a huge block of text. This only happened, I think, in one other issue that I remember, and I think I screenshotted it. But it was really weird. There was just so much text because they had to summarize a lot of stuff and explain a lot of stuff. But it's just like, it's a comic book. If you need a page half filled with text, you're doing something wrong. This is not what I want from a comic book. This is like I don't know what to think of this. This is just wrong. This is like an illustrated book. Oh yeah, this one I took a picture of because, again, comics are just bullshit. The Hulk has never, ever, ever, ever mentioned his shadow, ever. But suddenly he's just like, oh yeah, shadow. Only Hulk's shadow stays with Hulk. Oh, my shadow never lies to Hulk. Never betrays Hulk. Oh god, it betrays me! Because some alien, like, took over his shadow and, like, animated it or something like that. It's like he never fucking mentioned his shadow ever before, and now he's like, my shadow never betrays me. Oh god! It's just so ridiculous. Like, the plots and the build-ups that they come up with are just, you know, very different to what we expect nowadays. Like, just imagine if this scene was in a Marvel movie. Like, as written like this. Absurd. So here's General Ross in a giant robot fighting the Hulk. I know, it's crazy. Especially I like the... There's like a little thing, a button there on the middle. It's like, recharge here. Just in case, you know, the genius people that designed this robot forget. This thing is insane. And, yeah, they put General Ross inside of it. He's like 70 years old. That he's the best pilot. And what's funny is, Ross actually wins. He takes down the Hulk. He blasts him like with like a gamma cannon or something like that. And he just like one-shots him. After a little bit of fighting. So, yeah, that's interesting. Oh, this one was funny, because this is like a big callback to like the first issue. Betty Ross, I know I'm acting like a fool. And he says, don't say that, Betty. Don't ever say that. Your mother always thought she was acting like a fool. When she acted like a woman. Like, no, you're not a fool. You're just a woman. I don't know if that's what they intended with that statement, but that's immediately what it read like. Oh yeah, crazy technology. You saw the giant robot. Here is a guy talking to General Ross. I think this is right after they rescue Ross from a Russian prison. And so to satiate General Ross, he's like, oh, I might need this. A special reconstituted cigar. And so he just has this tiny little thing that he expands into a full-size cigar. The technology for this could, like, change the planet. And they use it for fucking cigars. Look at this. Hulk is only a monster, and it's the Hulk crying. I don't know if you ever expected to see the Hulk crying, but there it is. Here's the Hulk fighting the Loch Ness Monster, which is pretty interesting. And it also involves him remembering to hold his breath. Because, like I said, there are times... and the Hulk does not remember what water does. Oh, this is great. This is like this one-off random villain. I don't even know if he's one-off. He's probably appeared elsewhere. But he just showed up in a comic. He's like, swine! You'll rue this night, I promise you. I'm the greatest scientific intellect on the face of this planet. I swear I am. I am. Egghead. Like, this is your average villain in the 70s. Okay. Oh, man. I know we're already at over an hour and a half, but my God. There's a whole arc in the Defenders where they take on a group of neo-Nazis that want to that want to racially purge the country and bring it back into the power of the whites. So the whole thing sort of starts with this really, really racist landowner, or landlord, I guess. He refers to them as dumb darkies, as you can see him mentioning that. And then he retorts with, "Don't you speak to me that way, you big black ape. Take your filthy hands off me." And then he spits in his fucking face. My God. So here you have the neo-Nazis. I think they're called the Sons of the Serpent. Tonight, the great white race begins its march to dominance once again. Crazy. This came so out of left field. I did not expect this. And this is one of the greatest panels in the 200 and some issues I read. For 2 decades, this nation has felt the tyranny of the non-white minority, but no more. White and only white is beautiful. Only white? Hulk is not white. So the Hulk realizes that he is being racially persecuted for his skin color. And that really ticks him off. Just incredible. Because it's like, yeah, why? I mean, the Hulk is not white. Enough people remind him every single issue that he is green. So he knows he's not white. And these people don't care for non-whites. So here you have another one of those huge comic book, or these huge like text sections of the leader of the Sons of Serpent, the Serpent Supreme, giving a conference on television about their intentions for this racial purge. I'll let you just pause the video and read this if you can. I hope so. And I will let you insert your own political jokes. But yeah, it's heavy stuff. We intend to drive these leeches into the seas and rivers or drown them in their own blood if need be. Like, my God. Call upon every member of the oppressed white race to join us. It was crazy shit. And then you've got... So they, the Sons of the Serpent sort of start to succeed. I think they're going to burn the Valkyrie alive or something like that. So there's a mob, like, around this whole scene. And a guy rushes in. I think it's Valkyrie's husband, who she doesn't recognize. She doesn't remember. I'm not going to go into it. So he rushes in to try and save him, and he's getting, like, his ass kicked. And so it's like, you know, simply a man like themselves with no special power is willing to defy the Serpent's brutality. And this guy in the mob says, "What's the matter with us? I mean, I got no love for the blacks." Like, oh my God, I'm reading this in a comic book. The Comic Code Authority had no problem with this. I mean, I guess as long as the good guys succeed, it's all right. You don't gotta burn them alive just because you don't like them. Crazy. So yeah, that was the neo-Nazi arc. Incredible stuff. Here you have Yondu, who, if you follow Guardians of the Galaxy films, you're probably familiar with. This is the OG Yondu, who was part of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. And he looks pretty muscular there with his nice tights. And he does have his arrow that he controls with a whistle, but he actually has to fire it out of a bow first. He does not, like, just command it from his waist. He actually shoots it from a bow, and then he commands it with a whistle. It's not nearly as OP as in the movies, because nobody dies in Marvel Comics in this era. So he's not, like, putting it through people's hearts. He's just, like, knocking them around a little bit. He's not that OP, but there you have it. Here was an interesting panel. One, it's a beautiful shot of the Hulk ass. That is some Hulk ass. But also he says, Machine Man makes Hulk angry. Hulk does not like to get angry. Makes Hulk smash. I wouldn't have thought that really the Hulk does not like to get angry. It makes him strong. You'd think he would be okay with it. But no, he does not like to get angry. And it sort of goes into a overarching theme of the Hulk just wanting to be left alone and in peace, which is a lot of his goal most of the time, is to just be alone and be peaceful. So he does not like to be pissed off, I guess. Oh my god, this... Just read that text. Men killed Bambi's mother. And he's just so pissed off. Look at the size of his foot. Oh my god. Like, these two hunters shot a deer, and then this comes out of the woods and says, men killed Bambi's mother. So yeah, he had observed these two deer, and he named one of them Bambi. I don't know why. I guess you could explain it like Bruce Banner saw the movie Bambi at some point, and that knowledge just transferred over to Hulk in some way, and so he equated deer with Bambi. So he was very upset that they killed Bambi's mother. So of course he, I believe he. I'm gonna say he killed the hunters. I think the text implies that he did not. He just knocked him out. But he literally chucked a dude across the lake, and his head smashed into a tree. That dude is fucking dead. So yeah, he killed those hunters. And then he adopts the deer. He adopts Bambi, and he carries him around. He carries him around for like most of the issue. But I think eventually the deer like runs away when the Hulk moves on to something else. So. Yeah. This is just amazing. Oh, God. So many of these good panels. Help me, Hulk. I beg of you, help me. Why? Like, I know from this panel you don't know who is asking for help. So if you just imagine it as like some villager or something, it's pretty amazing. It is a villain that he just was fighting. And so in the next panel, he's like, you wanted to kill me. Why would I help you? But I just had to focus on this panel because by itself, it's so funny. Some poor villager drowning. Speaking of original Yondu, this is original Groot. This is OG Groot. He was not a part of Guardians of the Galaxy at all. He was just a monster from Planet X. He talked in full sentences. He was just a giant tree. He could like shoot needles out of his fingertips, so he did have some other abilities, but mostly he was just a giant tree. This version of Groot really is not almost have anything to do with the Groot you're familiar with, aside from them both being trees called Groot. I think like this version of Groot was in another issue like a few years back in like the 60s. He was brought back for this issue of the Hulk. He was in another issue of something in like the 90s. And then finally in like 2006, they brought back Groot again, but they made the proper Groot in Guardians of the Galaxies. Which, looking at that timeline, it's insane that they picked like, oh yeah, that tree thing Groot. Let's put him in the Guardians of the Galaxies. But, it worked. So yeah, this is Hulk fighting the original Groot. He did not stand up too well to the Hulk. So if you're curious what would happen if the Hulk ever fought Groot, this might give you a good idea. Gee, there's this smoldering stump. Amazing. So remember when I talked about Hulk and food? Here you go. Hulk wants beans. There you go. This was the other thing I was talking about earlier when I said there's one time I've seen Bruce Banner voluntarily bring on the Hulk transformation. This was it. He was not under direct attack. Nobody was punching him or anything like that, which has been always the case. Something else was in danger, and he needed the Hulk to solve it. So this is as far as I know, this is the first time he voluntarily brought on the transformation just by like focusing. So this is a pretty important series of panels, I think. And here you have the Thing and the Hulk side by side. Again, sort of a pin-up shot. Again, sort of a bullshit thing, because it's like, oh, the Thing and the Hulk, they're going to have like their own series or something like that. It's going to be them teaming up and doing all sorts of stuff together. Like, oh, this is pretty cool. No, This lasts for like half an issue. And then they're like, oh no, the Hulk never works well with anybody, and the Thing belongs with the Fantastic Four. This is stupid. And so by the end of the next issue, it's as if it never happened. And it's like, so bullshit. And this is the end of a comic. This is the final page. But the covers of comics are also so incredibly bullshit sometimes. They'll show scenes on a comic cover that never happen in the comic at all. Like, they'll show the Hulk in a situation. He literally is not even in the comic almost. Like, he's in it for like a panel that is not connected at all with what the cover shows. Like, they will straight up lie on comic covers just to sell them. So it's pretty bullshit. For whatever reason, I really liked this page. This is another kid that the Hulk befriended. Some sort of runaway kid. And they went to a theme park together, and the Hulk does not belong in a theme park, so he gets into trouble. The Abomination is there, if you watched the MCU, you probably know the Abomination from the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton. That is the original Abomination there. Looks nothing like what he did in the movie. And so the Abomination wanted to team up with the Hulk because they figured, this is a good ally to have. And so he actually was really smart. He did this in the center panel. You can see he did like this shockwave that caused the little kid to shoot a gun that hit the Hulk. And he's like, "Look, you can't trust these humans. Come with me instead." So really badass move on the Abomination's part. Because he knows that he cannot beat the Hulk in a straight-up fight. So he teamed up with him instead and used the shockwave gunshot move. Really badass. Here you have the Collector, which is played by Benicio del Toro in MCU. It looks a little bit different, of course. Again, just bullshit stuff. It's like, drink of this elixir of life, and you will never become that hideous man brute again. Because the Collector's like, look, I just want somebody to talk to. We can be buddies. And so Bruce is like, Betty is married. The world hates me. What else do I have? Why do I want to be the Hulk? Why should I keep this torment? Maybe I can still fix my life. So he's like, yes, you've got a deal. I will take it. And then immediately after that, like, the Collector refers to, like, his collection as exhibits, and Bruce is like, oh, that's all they are to you, is just exhibits, because he keeps, like, people there. So he's like, they're just exhibits, you're an asshole. And so then he turns into the Hulk, and then the Collector's like, oh, still, here, Hulk, you can take this elixir, and you can become Banner again forever. And as you well know, you never mention Banner to Hulk. So the Hulk just immediately smashes the fucking elixir of life. Amazing. Again, I mentioned how the Hulk is putty in a woman's hands. So this is the Hulk wants to smash the Collector. He hates him, of course. But the woman's like, no, you're my hero. Please help us. And so the Hulk says, Hulk will forget Pruneface and do as girl says. Like, just immediately just, okay, I'm done with that. I'll go with the girl. Pretty much, it's used many times where he just immediately works and helps out a girl, regardless of what he was doing. Here you have the cover of the 200th issue of The Incredible Hulk. Again, it's a little bit misleading because, like I said, the Hulk joined Tales to Astonish at number 60. And at 102, it was renamed to The Incredible Hulk. So really, this is issue 140. But, misleading is what Marvel does. So you got Bruce Banner there, you got the Hulk, you've got General Ross, Betty Ross, Glenn Talbot, you've got MODOK, Rick Jones, I believe, The Thing, The Human Torch, Reed Richards, Susan Storm, Doc Samson, The Rhino, Thor, Iron Man, Missing Link, Leader, Hercules, Namor, fucking Clay Quartermain, Sandman, Gremlin, Juggernaut, Abomination. Fuck, what is that guy's name? Oh my gosh. Oh, he's only in like a panel of this issue. Oh no, I thought I had everybody. No, he appears with the Sandman. No, I forgot. The guy in the purple there. Under the Hulk's fist. I forgot. Fuck. Then you've got Silver Surfer and Captain America. Most of those characters do not appear. Actually, no, I think just a couple of them don't really appear. I don't think the Fantastic Four is in this one at all. But yeah, so it was a big issue where the Hulk puts on this helmet that allows Bruce Banner's mind to take over the body, and the Hulk gets shrunk down and sent into Glenn Talbot's mind, because this Glenn Talbot has been a vegetable for like 40 issues, and people were writing in, they're like, fucking move on with Glenn Talbot already. And so finally, like, all right, the 200th issue, we'll take care of it. So he gets sent into Glenn Talbot's mind, and the Hulk encounters all these like memories of villains. So here the Abomination is fighting Hulk. The name isn't J. Jaws, mister, it's Banner! Yeah, you won't see that too often early on, but nice. And so this is... this Lovecraftian creature is the mental block that is causing Glenn Talbot to be a vegetable. The Hulk literally smashes him in a single panel. And that's done. So... that's where I stopped reading. That was the last comic I've read before I made this video. And the final screenshot I have here is of a letter from the 200th issue. It says, truth to tell, Larry, our very own writer-editor, has always had a theory about the Hulk's pants. And it goes something like this. While Bruce Banner doesn't wear specially treated fabrics, as do the Fantastic Four and others, the molecular composition of his pandemonious purple pants is nonetheless affected by those massive doses of gamma radiation which he gives off, to the extent that they acquire certain added properties beyond those normally attributed to ordinary purple pants. In other words, they didn't burst into flame during the Hulk's heated re-entry into our atmosphere. So the guy was like, you know, why didn't the pants burn up? And of course, they're not going to show the Hulk naked. This doesn't happen. But no, their explanation was the gamma radiation that the Hulk gives off makes his pants invulnerable. Okay. That's your explanation. Alright, so that's it. That was my journey through the Hulk comics up to this point, 1976. The Incredible Hulk issue 200 so far. So I'm going to keep going. I'm very interested to see where it goes. It's starting to get better and better. So I'm looking forward to getting into the 80s and the 90s and stuff. And it's interesting to see the graphic style evolve. You can look here at the cover of the first one there, the art style and stuff, and then you have sort of this stuff, which is pretty different. It's pretty different. There's a lot more shading and stuff at work and blah blah blah. Yeah, so there's going to be more videos of these in, you know, the coming year or something like that, whenever I continue to read more and do a big block of stuff, and there'll be a lot more screenshots. I'm also thinking about watching the Incredible Hulk TV show, but it looks pretty corny, so I'm not sure. Alright, this was a massively long video. I honestly hoped this would be like an hour and 15 minutes, but that's it. It's way past my bedtime. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you stuck through the whole thing. I hope it was somewhat entertaining, if not educational. Yeah, so that's that. My name is Mangg. This has been the Incredible Hulk. And I will see you fine folks around.